Welcome to the Municipal Voice, CCM's radio podcast in collaboration with WNHH 103.5 FM, connecting Connecticut's municipalities. We are your source for news on the municipal level across the state of Connecticut. I'm your host, Matt Ford, and in the studio with me today is Tucker Severson, Director of Products for C-Click-Fix, and Tom Gaudett, Special Products Director for the Office of Mayor Joseph Ganim of Bridgeport. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining me today. So what we're here to talk about today is the role of technology in allowing local governments to respond to their citizens. And first, Tucker, can you talk a little bit about C-Click-Fix, its history with Connecticut, and how it was founded right here in New Haven?
Absolutely. So as you know, we were founded and continue to have our entire operation in New Haven.
A couple blocks from where we are right now, right?
Right downtown, across the street from the State Street train station.
Oh, great. So you walked over.
And we walked over.
Nice.
Exactly. Yeah. Beautiful walk over here. It was started by our current CEO, Ben Berkowitz, and a few of his co-founders.
Yeah.
Roughly about 10 years ago.
Okay. And in New Haven, he's from New Haven?
Yes, he was born and raised in New Haven.
Oh, there you go.
And
local boy done good.
Yeah. Well, I think that the two primary aspects, or maybe three primary aspects, were that the founders were all here at the time. That there was also strong interest from the city of New Haven in services like this, and then third, that they were able to build a team that grew and could keep them here in New Haven.
Great. So C-Click-Fix is now in cities across the country, including places like Oakland, Detroit, Huntsville, Alabama. And the last one, Huntsville, you wrote a case study about the implementation there. Can you talk about what implementation looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can imagine, we work with municipalities and counties and state agencies ranging from 1,000 citizens that they're addressing to millions and millions of citizens that they're addressing, from very small towns to cities like Houston, Texas, Detroit, Michigan, for example. And so we let their specific needs drive a lot of how we implement.
Yeah.
And I would think of the two primary models that we tend to help cities with these days are either direct to department. You might call that a distributed model, where the requests are actually getting distributed all the way to the departments that manage the services, or an integrated model. It's kind of the classic 311 center.
Okay, and you do both.
And so we do both. And what implementation looks like for us is that we work with the city to set, key performance metrics, how they're going to measure success, the types of services that they're providing, how they'd like to roll those out internally, but then also how they're going to market to citizens and actually launch C-Click-Fix as a public event.
So you're doing a lot with them before it even launches. There's a lot of planning going on behind the scenes with the town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, because this is such a public interface and a public face for the cities that we're working with, it's really important that this be successful from day one. Yeah. And so there's a lot that goes on in terms of setting up the right infrastructure to make sure information is getting to where it needs to go. But also things like internal rollouts are almost always we do a very detailed internal rollout before we even turn on to the public. And then there's a communications and marketing strategy to make sure that people are aware of the service as it is turned on.
All right, cool. So speaking of the towns you work with, Tom, you're with the city of Bridgeport.
Right.
311 products like C-Click-Fix are really created to separate out non-emergency phone calls from 911 emergency centers. What's the role that 311 centers play in Bridgeport through an app like C-Click-Fix?
Well, I mean, 311 apps like what we have through C-Click-Fix really revolutionize the way that we handle quality of life issues in a city like our own.
Yeah.
You can imagine that back in the day, people used to make a phone call to city government to call Public Works or call the mayor's office. And later on, cities would use websites, and you would probably type some information into a form, and you wouldn't know what the follow-up would be on that type of thing. An app like this allows the city to be able to take in that issue efficiently, be able to direct the issue to the department needs to go, to be able to communicate with the citizen about what's going on with that issue, to send them emails and that kind of thing. So it's really changed the entire way that a city deals with quality of life issues. And it just is a lot better than the way that we used to operate.
And how long has Bridgeport been using C-Click-Fix?
So we've been using C-Click-Fix for about 2 years, maybe about 2.5 years now.
Okay. And what, you were talking about implementation from C-Click-Fix's side. What does it look like from the city's side?
Well, I mean, we obviously work with our partners at SeeClickFix to help us understand how their app and their technology works. What tools we can use both for the citizens' sake to be able to communicate with them, the element of transparency that the tool brings, but also this works for the city as a CRM system, a constituent response management system.
Okay.
So we have a bunch of tools on our end to be able to sort for issues and to be able to respond to issues and deal with them internally. So that's kind of what we do through implementation.
So the stuff on your end, the content management stuff, is that part of SeeClickFix, or is that something that Bridgeport is doing in conjunction?
Oh, no, it's a tool that SeeClickFix provides the city. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Maybe you can tell us about some of those tools and how they work.
Yeah, absolutely. The simple way that I think about it is we started mostly as a new channel for cities to get requests from citizens. And increasingly, we've been building out more and more tools for cities to actually manage those requests.
Yeah.
And so at first, it was mostly a public communication back and forth with the citizen. But these days, most of the functionality we're building in are actually internal workflow tools to manage that request. And increasingly, it's actually getting pulled all the way down into the department or even the supervisor and foreman level, where they're actually managing their day, and communicating not just back internally, but also back to the public.
When you talk about something like, let's say, potholes, is this software also helping them kind of prioritize what areas need the attention first, sort of thing?
Yeah, I think so. As you can imagine, cities respond to requests and manage their own workflows in very different ways. But often that's geographically based. And so, a common use case would be, I'm out in the field, I'm on a truck today, resolving some pothole concerns. I can use SeeClickFix to find other potholes in that area and actually, manage my day.
Because there's like maps too, so someone could actually zoom in and see, oh, this whole street is.
Yeah, exactly. And that could happen, either ad hoc while you're out in the field, or that could happen, in the back office as you're assigning issues to individuals.
And does that sort of thing happen with like public works and stuff? Are they looking at this information before they go out and kind of
absolutely? I mean, everything Tucker said is exactly right. I mean, the SeeClickFix tool on the back end, what the citizen doesn't see, does allow us to sort of sort and prioritize issues. There are things like heat maps and those sorts of things that SeeClickFix has as a tool for city government. So you're absolutely right. If we have potholes on one street, we can kind of say, okay, well, there's a lot going on in the street. Maybe this is going to be a priority for us. This is the next one in line. Just to be able to map out where you're going to go. Our inspectors, when they're dealing with blight issues or illegal dumping issues, to be able to look at what are the hot spots and address
you're not just looking at a stack of complaints on papers. You're looking at a map and seeing this whole area is like.
That's exactly right. I mean, it allows us to have a strategy to attack the kinds of issues that cities are dealing with every day. So.
Oh, that's really cool. So Tucker, recently on the show we had on Mayor Kurt Lang of Hamden, and he is a big user of social media to communicate with his constituency. And in one instance, he talked about getting potholes filled within an hour. Has this technology changed the expectations towards the city, and how do you manage those expectations? I'll go with Tom on this one.
I think that citizens always have high expectations of city government. And they always expect that something is going to be done when they, ask that we fill a pothole, when we deal with the graffiti issue, anti-blight. I just think that this tool allows us to do everything that cities do better. Yes, there is a high expectation of people when they use the app, let's say, and they report an issue to city government. They anticipate that we're going to do something about it. And now, because the tool is so transparent, I mean, you can see everything. You can follow issue, not only your own issue, you can follow other people's issues. You can create watch areas in your neighborhood, and you can follow people's issues. Now that everyone can see everything that's going on, yes, they're going to hold government accountable.
If something's gotten put on the back burner somehow, everyone can see that it's been there for 3 months, 6 months.
One of the greatest things about this tool is that they can see everything that city government is doing very well. One of the bad things is that they can see everything that city government is not doing well. But, it's a good way for people to hold government accountable, and they absolutely do. We see evidence of it every day.
That's cool. So a lot of this stuff sounds useful. If there's a town that's currently using a web-based kind of app for this, what would be the challenges of switching to this do you think from a town's perspective?
Well, I mean, obviously, SeeClickFix allows people to report on a website too, and we have, on Bridgeport's website, we have a widget that they can use through SeeClickFix, so that avenue is always available. So we're actually just providing a new option, which is that you can use an app, which we branded in the city of Bridgeport called Bridgeport 311. Powered through SeeClickFix.
Okay.
It just gives them another avenue
So
to
it's not
report.
necessarily replacing, it's an addition, and probably at this point is getting more traffic through it, I would think.
Exactly. It's more beneficial. It provides another option. It's more user-friendly. And quite frankly, it's easier to have your cell phone in your hand, standing in front of the pothole, taking a picture. GIS locates exactly where you are, and you can, describe it and fill out the information right there, as opposed to going back home later on to use your computer to fill out that service request. So,
and then telling someone you need to go find this issue, it's somewhere on this stretch of road.
Exactly. I mean, GIS on the phone allows it to be identified exactly where it is. And I think that's tremendously helpful. The city
it's
certainly
certainly more efficient than driving
convenient.
around trying to find where exactly they're talking about, or
exactly.
Yeah. So for this to work, it seems like, half of it is what you guys are providing, and then half of it is how towns respond. So on your end, how do you help encourage or facilitate the city's response to the issues? And then we'll talk to you in a minute about how cities actually do that.
Well, I think this is a little bit related to what we were just describing, because often the main difference between a web form and a full service request management system like SeeClickFix is that a web form is just taking in problems. It's not giving you a workflow to actually manage those problems. And so SeeClickFix, one of our strategies is to make it as easy as possible to get high quality data from your residents. However, really where this becomes where the magic kind of happens is in the workflow built into SeeClickFix, because the request is only as good as the response you're getting.
Exactly.
And so as Tom's saying, that mostly what people expect is a response and some update on what the plan is to resolve a problem, because usually there is a plan. We often say we've never created a pothole in the 10 years of SeeClickFix being around. Often there is actually a plan, and there's a remarkable amount of work getting done that a city is not necessarily getting credit for. And so if we can build a wider audience of engaged users that are actually being connected throughout the city, you're almost getting more credit for the work that you're actually doing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was thinking about, so, you can see this map of all the issues there might be in town. Can the towns also see all the solved ones?
Oh, of course. Yeah. So
you can see the successes as well as the problems.
Yeah. So a pretty simple example, we have a lot of things that we build into the citizen side of the app to engage more users in issues in their community. And the magic there is that if you have 3 people following an issue that you resolve, they all get the completion notification. They all have the option to thank the person who solved the issue.
Yeah.
It engages more people in the work that you're already doing, rather than just getting duplicate requests for the same.
That's interesting. So it's the information coming from the citizens, but it's also information back to them.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely critical. Is having a process in place where you're not just receiving requests for service, but you're actually notifying people of the resolution. And of course, the best solution is when your workflow is actually automating most of that communication.
That's very cool. So in the town,
right,
how do you kind of follow and track what is getting taken care of, and how do you make that happen? Because if someone reports it and nothing gets done, then it's not useful. So how, as a city, do you follow that up, and with it going to different departments, are you in charge of kind of seeing that gets to the right departments?
Well, so I mean, a tool like this is helpful because, again, thinking back to traditional ways, you have something on a website and you report a problem. Okay, where does it go? Well, somebody's got to sort out that issue. You call public facilities, or you call the mayor's office. Now you've got to figure out how to get that issue to the right person. An app like SeeClickFix, that problem is solved because depending on what category of issue you're reporting, whether it's a pothole or graffiti or illegal dumping or whatever have you, that issue goes to the department and to the people that deal with
handling that
automatically
kind of issue.
Right. And then, city officials go to their desk every day. they're on the back end of a tool like SeeClickFix, and they're looking at what their role is today. What jobs do they have today that they need to address? And so that's how they attack the quality of life issues in the city. So this gets away from people having to do more work and trying to sort out where does this issue go. And again, it allows for people to be engaged in the process too, and to know where that issue is. They're getting an email when they submit the issue, when the issue's open. They're getting an email when the issue is acknowledged by the city. They're getting an email when it's closed by the city. They're getting an email every single time somebody comments on the issue, either from the public or from the city. So there's a tremendous amount of engagement, and people, I think, have more confidence that something's getting done.
So one thing I'm thinking about now is we've talked about the communication and how good that is, the responsiveness, whatever. But obviously in Connecticut these days, budgets are a big talking point. Does using a system like SeeClickFix help you strategize and get more bang for your buck, make a dollar go farther by being more efficient as a city?
Absolutely. I mean, again, I think that this tool for city government is tremendously helpful because it allows people to do more in less time. There's no more chasing people around and trying to direct issues. There's less of the, sort of old-fashioned, let's take telephone calls and have old, 311 centers to take in information about where there are issues around the city. It all comes in through the app. It all goes to the people that need to deal with it. It gets done. And also what it does is it allows for city officials, administration and city managers to kind of figure out where there are issues in the city. To identify problem spots where there are backlogs, and there definitely are in every city. Bridgeport has that problem just as everyone else does. So a tool like this actually allows city government to figure out where its priorities are, what are people concerned about, because not all of the service request categories that we have are equal. I mean, there are some things that people are reporting on a daily basis a lot more than other issues. So it allows for us to collect information about where problems are and what people are concerned about, and ultimately allows us to be more efficient.
That's cool. So we've talked, a lot. Obviously, you're with Bridgeport, one of our biggest cities. Tucker, how does SeeClickFix work with smaller towns?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. So I think that if you actually follow the history of SeeClickFix, early on, most of our work was with some of these larger 311 based cities.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing more and more is similar to what Tom's describing, where 311 is not a cost-effective way. Is sometimes not a cost-effective way to engage your entire citizen population. And so often what SeeClickFix is doing is it's actually enabling that 311 type experience for a city that can't afford to have a call center.
They didn't have it in the first place.
People. And so what we do is, as we've been describing, we're able to get the request directly from the citizen to the department that manages the work, and build a workflow for them that doesn't interrupt their day, actually helps them manage their day. And the biggest difference for us between big cities and small cities is that big cities often have a actual they're being inundated with requests. They're coming from everywhere, and small cities don't feel that way. They have a manageable amount of requests coming in. They don't necessarily have a process to handle them, make sure that they don't lose track of them. But increasingly, what we're seeing at this point, the vast majority of the cities and towns that we work with are small towns, are 20,000 population and below. And really for them, what they're looking for is an integrated system where they can manage all the things that they're doing that happens to provide citizens with a great experience.
Awesome. So Tom, another thing I want to talk to you about is obviously engagement from the public is super important. If you don't get information in, you don't know where it's in it.
Right.
How do you encourage the citizens of Bridgeport to report things, comment, be engaged? Is that part of the marketing plan?
We do. Like? I mean, we do market it. Obviously, we have. It's not just SeeClickFix. We tell people about SeeClickFix, but SeeClickFix has worked with us to actually brand it and call it Bridgeport 311. So we have our own logo, and we have signage and information that goes out, and we tell people when people call the city, we tell them about 311. We've helped constituents be able to set up an account and be able to report issues. I've personally gone to some of our neighborhood revitalization zone meetings and to our city council and to other interested groups and people and tell them about it. And we've done little seminars to help people figure out what is this tool, how do you use it, how do you log on, how do you report issues, how do you follow up, what are some of the benefits. So people are learning, people are using it. We've seen an increase in usage over time. And people just realize that this is the best way for them to report an issue to city government. That and if you have a phone and you can go out into your community and report that issue, that is by far the best way to get a response out of city government. And it's absolutely true.
That's very interesting. Should pause for a moment to do a station ID here. You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, broadcasting live from downtown New Haven. We are streaming live on TuneIn Radio and newhavenindependent.org. We're also streaming live video on Facebook and YouTube. Just go to facebook.com/newhavenindependent or ccm-ct.org. All right. So same question to you. Engagement. What's SeeClickFix's kind of vision and strategy for getting the public engaged in this?
So I think that there are at least two major components of this. The first is, how engaging is the app kind of on its own, and how are you marketing it? What's the public face of the app? And as we mentioned, we work with cities and counties to actually promote the app, branding, messaging. The little things really matter there, and that's something you do over and over and over again, throughout. And then the other side is the other side of things, where, as Tom mentioned, if they feel like this is the best way to solve my problem, they're going to use the app over and over again, and they're going to tell their friends about it. There's kind of this magical moment where you submit a problem through a mobile app, and then someone comes by and fixes it, and you think, oh my gosh, there's this connection between something I did on my phone to actual improvements in my community. And that's got to get people excited. Yeah, for sure.
So what do you see? Let's go with Tom on this one. What do you see as the way forward using technologies in cities for this sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that at this point, where we are with technology, I think that you can't survive as a city without a tool like this, especially a city the size of Bridgeport, or even cities larger than us. You just really can't function without an efficient 311 system. And you really need a tool like this, an app that allows citizens to report these kinds of issues. There are just too many issues of so many different varieties all throughout a city. You need to collect this information. You need to figure out how to get this information quickly to the people that need to deal with them, to various different departments. You need a way for city officials to be able to keep track of what's going on in your city, what people are reporting, to be able to hold your city officials accountable for the work that they're supposed to be doing. So, quite frankly, I think that I know anecdotally, having spoken to a lot of other city officials in Connecticut and elsewhere, many cities have gone with tools like SeeClickFix, and many are considering it because it's just a necessity this day and age. The people expect it. And I can tell you that, having gone with SeeClickFix about 2.5 years ago, a lot of people have started to use it in the city of Bridgeport, and they love it. I mean, I have people that call all the time asking questions or following up on an issue, but they use this tool every day. There are people that report issues every single day. And it's just become a way of life. It's just an expectation. So I would encourage our fellow towns and cities that are struggling with how to efficiently, effectively, transparently, accountably deal with the quality of life issues in their neighborhoods to consider doing something like this. Yes, absolutely.
I know one thing. I live in New Haven, and one thing I always turn to SeeClickFix for is to learn about tree trimming, trash pickup, things like that. How do the cities get stuff like that to SeeClickFix? You just send them something? Do you have forms you can fill in and it goes out to the public? How do you use it as a communication tool to the towns?
Sure. Yeah, I can answer that. So, we used to call this reverse 311. So SeeClickFix is primarily known for submitting requests from citizen to city.
Yeah.
But we also have a product that allows people, the cities, to project information to the citizen.
Yeah.
Either as an email or actually within the mobile app itself. So we're seeing a lot of of growth in those types of messaging. So, for example, your trash pickup has been moved because of MLK holiday.
Yeah.
Or, things about like the snow ban recently. New Haven has been sending out their snow bans messaging through SequelFix that way. So it's great because it engages users back into the system. It's really valuable to see that information, and it's also great for someone who maybe isn't reporting problems every day to be able to find that information and engage with the app.
Is that so from the city side? Is that part of every setup, or are there different configurations that what works for Bridgeport might not work in Killingly? Do you customize not just the face of it, the branding, whatever, but the actual functionality? Does that change from place to place, or is it kind of it's all there and you can just use what you like?
We try to keep it as simple as possible. There's a lot of functionality. As we mentioned, we work with a wide variety of organizations, and during implementation, we help make sure that the product is set up exactly for that use case. But for the most part, we keep it as simple as we can. The functionality is all in there because we don't want to create barriers between how yourself and how you use the product. And so for the most part, it's self-serve within the app. And so once you've gone through and set it up, it's all accessible to you to expand.
You said something about you work with a lot of different organizations. When you say that, are there people you work with that aren't municipalities and cities?
Yeah, so most of the organizations we work with are municipalities and counties. We have a handful of state agencies.
Okay.
We have a handful of colleges. Increasingly, we're working with more and more service providers.
Yeah.
So the analogy or the story that I would use is I'm walking through New Haven and I find a problem. Now, depending on where I am in New Haven, it might be a City of New Haven problem. It might be a Connecticut DOT problem. It might be a Yale problem.
Oh, interesting.
It might be
like if you're on a state road, it could be a state problem.
It might be related to the homeowner association that I'm living in. And so, for example, I had a list of New Haven organizations we're working with. So we work with the City of New Haven. We work informally with Connecticut DOT. We have free products that they use. We work with New Haven Housing, New Haven Town Green, SCSU.
Okay, Southern, yeah.
And so New Haven doesn't have the same county-city relationship that some of the states that we work with have.
Yep, no counties in Connecticut.
But there's still a lot of interagency reporting going on in New Haven.
So if you're saying you work with all those organizations around town in New Haven, are the citizens, are they just going to the New Haven page and putting something on there and then it goes to Southern if it's actually in their territory, or they need to find the Southern SeClickFix page?
Sometimes it happens in both ways, but for the most part, every SeClickFix product that you use determines the services available based on location.
Okay.
And so this could even be within one city. You could provide different services in different locations. And so step one, where are you reporting? Step two, here's a list of categories within that area, which will be broken out by the service provider. So if I were in
So I go on there to talk about a problem that's actually on Southern's campus, and it'll say at some point, are you referring to a problem that's at a university or something?
Exactly. In fact, in the case of Southern, it's likely that the entire geography is cut out. So you may see just a list of categories for Southern. But if you're on an area where the geographies overlap, you'll see a list of New Haven services and a list of Southern services.
Interesting.
Within one list.
Or state and local.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Right.
Tom, you were talking before, so your 311 app, or your 311 service predates working with SeClickFix, is that right? Or did you start it with
Well,
SeClickFix?
I mean, we've always had a 311 system. We've always had a way to take in information, but we just started with SeClickFix about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So we've developed this relationship, and we built out our app and allowed people to be able to use this specific tool.
Yeah.
What we found was, so the interesting thing about SeClickFix in particular is you don't need to be a municipal customer of SeClickFix for your constituents to use SeClickFix. So you can go on your app store on an Android or iPhone and download the SeClickFix app and report an issue.
Yeah.
The question is, what happens to that issue? In order for a city to deal with that issue efficiently, it usually makes a lot of sense for the city to become a municipal partner, which is what Bridgeport has done. So if someone is in the city of Bridgeport and reports an issue, we've got a certain number of categories, which we've configured the system to have based on how our departments function and which departments are dealing with which issue. So that's something that we do during implementation. We try to figure that out. And it's all highly customized from that perspective. So all the functionality is the same. But, to Tucker's point, if I take my C-Click Fix app and I come into New Haven and I try to report an issue here, it's going to bring up all of the branding and the list of, request categories for New Haven. Someone walks into Bridgeport and they're going to have the same experience. They're going to see our logo with our listing of things. But if you're in a place that doesn't work with C-Click Fix, isn't a municipal partner, you can still use the app. And it has some sort of more generic reporting capabilities, as I understand.
Well, you were saying before, Tucker, that you work with the state, right? Of Connecticut?
Yes. So the way to think about C-Click Fix is, at its core, it is an open platform that anyone can use anywhere. So, for example, in the case of the DOT road, the state DOT road in Connecticut, it's common for a citizen of New Haven to report a problem to the city of New Haven that is actually a state road.
On a state road, yeah.
And so in that scenario, the city of New Haven is actually able to send an email to the state DOT who can click through to the link and comment back to the citizen, which they do regularly in New Haven.
So if I was in a town that isn't a C-Click Fix participant or whatever, but I'm on a state road and I report something in some other town, does that still go to the state, or does it need to be within a town that is part of the system?
Yeah, so if you're outside of an organization's geography, what you get is an uncategorized request. And what we do is we have a variety of free tools that organizations can use to set up what we call watch areas. That, or think of it as a really simple version of what we do with our partners. And so you've got uncategorized requests coming in that you can filter to an email address.
Talking about filtering, one thing that I'm thinking about now is you're saying, you don't need to be necessarily even live in a town to use the app, so forth. Are there any issues with people abusing the system, like complaint after complaint after complaint, or is there a system for policing that, and how does that work? Let's go with Tom on this one.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of abuse of the system at all. No, I think people are pretty honest and fair about using it. Naturally, most of the people that are reporting problems in, let's say, Bridgeport, are Bridgeport residents. It's definitely possible that people are coming from outside, maybe neighboring towns, or even coming from a city that also uses C-Click Fix. They might also use it too. We have people that use the app every day and that are reporting problems. Do we have people that are reporting the same issue over and over and over, maybe because they're annoyed it hasn't been dealt with yet?
Yeah.
No, we don't find that really. C-Click Fix has all the tools that you can imagine for city government to deal with these types of issues. If you have maybe multiple people that are concerned about the same issue, well, then you can just sort of merge those issues and deal with them, together. So C-Click Fix has thought of everything in that respect.
That's sort of interesting. So we're talking about how they combine issues. So if I complain about, something unsightly on the street, and someone else complains about graffiti on the street, they don't call it the same thing. They don't necessarily identify the same. Is there a way for you to identify that it's actually the same problem and to kind of let people know?
There are a variety of ways that we deal with that, and it's something that we're always trying to get better at.
Yeah.
Because duplicate issues are a huge problem.
Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier that we have a variety of tools that engage people in existing requests. And so the first is that if I'm opening up C-Click Fix, I'm looking at a map of a dot on a map in front of my house. I click on it, I see it's the thing that I'm concerned about. I just follow that issue, right?
So that's kind of automatic. Like, I'm standing somewhere, I got something going on right here. I go to report it. There's going to be a map, and I would see, oh, there's already something here. Oh, yeah, that's the same thing that I'm upset about.
Exactly, just exploring on the map. The second is when you go to report an issue. Let's say that I didn't go to the map. I clicked report, and I started reporting the same issue. What we're able to do is, based on location and category, to surface the potential duplicates and say, is this your issue?
Yeah.
We found a similar issue right nearby. And at that point, the user can follow the existing issue rather than report the duplicate. And then the final version that Tom was mentioning is that on the back end side, on the CRM, the organization, when they do find duplicates, can merge them, which takes the two followers of the initial request and allows them to both follow one item within the city.
And the city can do that on their end.
Correct.
What if one of the people who report it It's like, no, I don't mean the same thing. Do they get informed when that gets merged? Do they get like a notification or?
They do. They get a notification when it gets merged. Interestingly, the opposite thing sometimes happens where someone reports one request and it's actually 3 requests.
They go on a rant about the entire neighborhood or something. Or...
No, it could be as simple as, I saw a stop sign that was down, but it turned out there was actually some curb damage that had caused the stop sign to go down.
Oh, okay. So not separate places, but issues that would go to separate departments.
Right. And so what we do is we try to build workflows that accommodate that so that you can have one communication flow back to the citizen while managing the multi-step workflow in your organization.
That's interesting. So it doesn't just go to one department necessarily.
Well, it will initially go to one department.
Okay.
But it then often will get broken out either by reassignment, recategorization, or creating a separate, we have a separate object called a work order that you can create off of that.
And that's done on your end or on the city's end?
Well, that would all be the city managing their workflow of that initial request.
So, Tom, when a request comes in, how does it? What's the flow? Where does it go within Bridgeport City Hall or whatever? Like,
it depends.
Yeah.
So it depends on. I mean, if you're reporting, let's say, a zoning issue, it's going to go to specific officials in the zoning department that are dealing with enforcement issues. Again, if you're dealing with blight or illegal dumping, it'll go either to public facilities or to the health department. You could be reporting a pothole. You could be reporting issues in a park. All of these things have already been thought out and considered. We have our list of preset categories. We know exactly what email addresses are these issues are being sent to. And these people know on a daily basis when they show up to work that they're going to go into the back end, into the CRM, and they're going to look to see what issues are being reported and what status they're being in. And then what the process is from there depends on every department. Some issues can be dealt with in maybe a matter of a day. Other issues can take months. It really depends on what the issue is. It depends on what city ordinances apply. For instance, on a blight issue, the citizen, shows us that this house has some furniture that's been dumped in the front yard. Clearly, it's a violation of our ordinances. Okay. Then we send out, based on that issue, we acknowledge the issue first. Okay. The citizen knows that, hey, we've acknowledged it. We see that you've reported it. Thank you for reporting it to us, and we're on it. Then we send out an inspector to look at that issue and to verify that it's there and that it is in violation of our ordinances. And then we follow a 30-day process and a hearing process and fining and all that kind of stuff. That's based on every city. Every city is different. But other things like pothole, maybe it can be fixed tomorrow. So it really depends.
We've mentioned potholes a lot. Tucker, is that the single biggest thing you get reported? What's popular? What gets the most going on See-Click Fix?
Well, potholes in the top 5.
Yeah.
I think the number one is still blight of some kind.
Blight. Okay.
Everything. These categories are all described differently.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit hard to parse out exactly what the number one is. But we see a lot of tree issues. We see a lot of blight issues, a lot of illegal dumping issues, a lot of pothole issues.
Yeah, I suppose that changes a lot from region to region too.
Yeah, I think that's the main reason that blight beats out potholes nationwide is that potholes have a certain climate that they tend to populate.
Like freezing and blight. Certain cities might have more of that than others.
Right.
We have a lot of abandoned vehicles.
That's when you get a lot.
Yeah.
Well, that's great though, because I actually did I? Yeah, I did. I used See-Click Fix because there was a car on my street over by my house that had been sitting there for months, flat tires and the whole thing, coat of dust, and reported inside of a day and a half it was gone. So that was a good one.
Was that in Bridgeport?
No, that was in New Haven.
Oh darn. Okay.
If it was in Bridgeport, it might have been even quicker, for all we know.
That's right.
Well, Hugh, what's your final thought on how has using a system like See-Click Fix changed the way city government works?
Well, I'll tell you what, through implementing this tool and watching it sort of develop over the last 2.5 years, we continue to make changes and tweaks to it because we're not perfect and we're learning new information about what people want to report to us, about how we name some of our issues, what sub-questions we ask for each issue. So we're learning every single day, and we're continuing to make improvements. It's taught me a hell of a lot about how city government works, about where we have some backlogs and some issues with, just providing more resources to some of these departments, and also where city government is doing really well. It's taught us a lot about citizen engagement and the expectations that people have in terms of being able to efficiently report an issue to us and the follow-up that we have afterwards. So I'm extremely grateful that we've been able to successfully implement C-Click Fix in Bridgeport. I'm happy that people in Bridgeport are using it, and we're continuing to educate people on that all the time. I think our goal moving forward is to continue to perfect the system, deal with these sort of backlogs and little issues that we do have in city government, and to educate people about it so that more people can use it. We want people to use this. We want people to engage with the city. We think that, sunshine is the best disinfectant. If people will just give us all this information and they can follow up on city government, hold us accountable, that ultimately the city will be a better place.
That sounds good. Well, I'd like to thank you both for being here today. I'd like to thank Tucker Severson and Tom Gaudett. The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Kevin Maloney is our executive producer. Christopher Gilson is our producer. Harry Draws is on the boards, and I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like, and watch out for CCM chat series on our YouTube page. See you next time.